Hey everyone, what's up? I didn't see you there. It's me, Colin the Big Yosh, back at it again. Today I wanted to do, oh, by the way, just ignore the heaven going on here. My planet does have 5 suns. Um, yeah, that's just, I cannot get the camera to focus right, so I want me to be bright. I don't want myself to look all dark. Well, that looks normal, so we're just gonna keep that like that. I'm a real professional, I know. Okay, so today I wanted to do something a little bit different. This is gonna be my first scripted video. Before I would have like notes and stuff to go off of, but this is the script, and it's not like an actual script. I mean, I don't know. It's like, so I'm in the school newspaper, and I made an article on ranking the Marvel Netflix seasons and doing little reviews on them. And I worked really hard on it, and I thought maybe I could turn this into a script. It might not sound quite right, but I hope you enjoy it anyways. I guess let's just get into the video. So we all know that the movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they're a huge accomplishment. They break records every year. Taking all of the comic book characters and putting them into one interconnected universe is a really cool concept. And you know, everyone knows this, but I'm just, it's an intro, so. Adding in iconic characters like Captain America, Iron Man, Hulk, and Spider-Man is awesome. And then it's even cooler for me to see lesser known characters that people don't know about, like Ant-Man and Star-Lord and Black Panther, and making them iconic and likable in their own right. Even though people know about Rocket Raccoon and the Wasp, even though people know about those now, there seems to be a group of heroes that people always forget about still. And those are the heroes from the Marvel Netflix series. Such as Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, guys like that. I wanted to know more about these characters personally, and I'm a huge MCU geek. So I decided to watch every single one of these seasons, starting in July 2019 and ending in February 2020. And I've really enjoyed all of the seasons. Yes, all of them. You'll see in a minute. So I thought I would go ahead and just review each of the seasons and then give my thoughts on them. There's a few spoilers, but they're not huge. They're slight spoilers. Sitting at number 13 is going to be Iron Fist Season 1. This season started off with some really cool ideas, like expanding on the role of the Hand, having Danny take down the villain Madame Gao, and having Claire Temple, which is a character that has a role in almost every season, be more important. I liked that a lot. This season, unfortunately, butchers a lot of these ideas. The season is not great. I think I enjoyed it more than most people did, but it could have been better. You would expect this season to be all about kung fu and fighting, but a lot of the season is dragged down by pointless scenes all about Rand Enterprises, which is, the business that Iron Fist owns. And the first few episodes were just about him trying to prove his identity to everyone, which isn't the best plotline for a show about martial arts. The villain is pretty stupid as well. His motivations are dumb, and he isn't even a big threat. The season does leave off on a few cliffhangers, though, which I thought was really cool at the time. The pacing was actually pretty good, and I was never bored. I always wanted to see what would happen next due to the pretty good fight scenes. Obviously, the fight scenes could have been better, but I don't blame Finn Jones for it at all, because he didn't get any time to practice the choreography. So I thought they were okay. They were pretty decent, at least compared to the ones in Daredevil. Next up on our list is going to be Luke Cage Season 2. So this is a season that has some pretty good ideas, but it doesn't execute them all that well, similar to Iron Fist. It starts off with a pretty menacing villain named Bushmaster, who I thought was a great actor. And he's pretty great, yeah. He has a compelling origin story and interesting motivations, and he's pretty menacing. But he is defeated. The way he's defeated in the show, I don't think it was a great end to his character. It could have been handled a lot better. It was a little anticlimactic. Also, the plot line about Luke Cage losing his temper and becoming a vigilante more than he already was is cool. it feels a little forced in the way that they present the idea. I really like the drama involving his girlfriend Claire. It led to a really powerful scene, at least for me, that I felt was really realistically written, and I don't know, I just pulled on my heartstrings a little bit, you know what I'm saying? She isn't, yeah, but she is unfortunately written out of the whole MCU. Like, we never see her again, which was a huge shame. It was a very weird end to her character arc because she had been in so many shows before this. I like the way that they expanded on the villains from the first season for the most part, but they are trapped in a pretty messy plot with really bad pacing. A couple of the episodes are really boring due to Netflix forcing the show to have 13 episodes instead of the original 10. So some of the episodes were probably an afterthought, and some of them were pretty good. Like a certain one, that's episode 10, I think. That one was pretty great. But some of the episodes, the pacing was all screwed up, and it just could have been a lot better. Some of these episodes kind of go for character growth and character development, but I don't think it does it that great. And also, the ending of this season was very strange. It was wild as a payoff to the entire series. It didn't work for me, and it felt very jarring. Alright, this one's going to be controversial. Don't hate me in the comments. Alright, so next on our list is going to be The Punisher Season 2. After finishing the season, I was very torn. The season tries to do a few too many things, but it doesn't juggle all the plot lines that well. There are two main villains in the season, but they don't have anything to do with each other. The plot lines never intersect at any point during the season. It starts off with Russian mercenaries going after Frank's new companion, Amy, over some pictures that she shot of a very rich and powerful family that the family doesn't want getting out. Then the season moves away from that plot line for a couple of episodes in order to focus on the other plot line, which the villain from season 1 comes back and gets revenge. The season keeps swapping between the two plot lines. Because of this, viewers go a very long time without seeing characters from the opposite plot line. The pacing wasn't too great either, with very long, drawn-out scenes with a lot of pop songs thrown in randomly. Some of them I kind of liked, but some of them I did not like. The plot is just very messy, very confusing, and it made the season less enjoyable. The villains in this season were pretty interesting, at least in concept. The villain from season 1 who couldn't remember anything that happened since his army days, and the new villain who was a very strange character that the writers tried to make sympathetic, but it could have been handled a lot better. He still kills people without mercy, so it was a little confusing for me. The ending wasn't the best this show could have had, but it had some good emotional parts. At number 10 on our list, I have The Defenders. I was pretty excited for this series. I heard some stuff about it that I wasn't that excited about, but overall I was still excited. I thought it was going to be just like The Avengers. I loved how this season brought all of the heroes together. This is the Avengers of this mini universe, so seeing everyone come together was really cool, actually. They met in some really interesting and realistic ways that were true to their characters and were fun to watch as well. Just seeing the team bicker and talk to each other was fun, and so was watching them fight together. They had some really interesting fight scenes in there, because we see some of the characters' powers come together in fun ways, even if some of their powers are a bit similar. The dialogue in this season was definitely simplified. I think it was more for general audiences. It was kind of nice, but it felt weird to hear the characters talk differently than in the other shows. I think that was just a me thing. I don't think anyone else thought that. The actors do a good job, however, except I didn't think Sigourney Weaver did that great. Like, I like Sigourney Weaver, and she plays the villain, Alexandra, but she plays it in a really weird way where she's really flat and monotone and a bit boring in some cases. The plot does get really confusing, at least for me. I don't know if it was just me, but around the end. But it was a pretty good story overall. It does leave off on a cliffhanger, which leads into something that I'll discuss later. Next up is Iron Fist Season 2. Compared to the first season, this was a huge improvement for Iron Fist. One of my complaints about the first season was that it focused too much on Rand Enterprises and not enough about the martial arts stuff, which is what the show is about. Luckily, this season is almost fully about martial arts, as there are way more fight scenes and better ones at that. There are also more mysteries to unravel about Danny's time in Kunlun, where he learned Kung Fu, and a much better villain. The villain is pretty interesting. He was set up in the first season to be angry at Danny, and in the second season, he is ready to take revenge. A twist that happens in a few episodes in made for some really cool action, and along with some of the new characters, it was a pretty entertaining season. It was only 10 episodes long this time, so the pacing was a lot better. I hugely appreciated that. I also think that the acting this season was a lot better. Finn Jones, who plays Danny, seemed like he was still figuring out the role in the first season, but in The Defenders and in this season, he's a lot better. The worst part about Season 2 is the ending, as the events that unfold in the last few minutes were very weird for this show, I thought. It would have been nice to have a Season 3 in order to explain this, but unfortunately the show was canceled. Don't hurt me. I know that nobody's going to like this. Next on my list is Daredevil Season 2. Alright, so the season does, don't get me wrong, the season does start off great with the plot line about Daredevil versus the Punisher. But unfortunately, the season loses some steam when it introduces Elektra. The Punisher is a really compelling character, as his family was basically taken from him. So his way of bringing justice to Hell's Kitchen is a heck of a lot different than Daredevil's, for sure. It's fun watching them bicker and watching Daredevil try to stop the Punisher from killing people. This unfortunately becomes a side plot, which was a weird turn. It moves out of the way to make room for the Hand plotline. When Elektra is introduced, things start off okay, with flashbacks showing her and Daredevil's history together. And she almost starts to convince him that killing is how to get real justice. But when the Hand is introduced, the season falls apart for me. They don't explain what the Hand is well enough in that season. So, I was pretty confused at what they were supposed to be. The pacing in this season isn't great either, and I was pretty bored throughout a few episodes. But overall, it's a pretty good follow-up to Season 1. I know that a lot of people hated this season, but I liked it, alright? I liked Jessica Jones Season 2, which is next on our list. I liked this season a lot. It focused on Jessica and more of her tragic past, and a lot of the other characters as well. Even the villain had a pretty compelling origin, I thought, and I wanted to see more of her. One character that I didn't like was Trish Walker. I liked her a lot as a side character in Season 1, but in this season she continues to make bad decisions one after another, and it's very annoying in general. I did like the new character that Jessica warmed up to in the end, as he was a nice little addition to make Jessica less misanthropic, as the show puts it. Even if he was only in one scene in Season 3. One scene, and I really liked him. I thought that the story was pretty interesting, and it didn't drag on too much, and even though the ending was a bit anticlimactic, I enjoyed this season a lot. Alright, next up on my list is going to be Luke Cage Season 1. Luke Cage is really expanded upon from his introduction in Jessica Jones, and I thought that he was a pretty compelling character. He doesn't really want the powers, and he doesn't consider himself a hero, but he tries his best to help people. The villains in the first half were really cool as well. The crime boss and the politician kind of work together and try to stop Luke. Unfortunately, a big twist happens in the middle of the season that really slows the entire show down, and the show started to get a lot more boring. It wasn't terrible, but once they added a third villain, it lowered the quality of the season for me. I was still invested, but it dragged a little bit. However, there were some really cool action scenes in this, and there were some, I don't know, I just really enjoyed his character enough that this did put it above all those other seasons. Next up is Jessica Jones Season 3. Right off the bat, this season starts off with a bang. The first episode and a whole lot of the season is about her job as a private investigator. This is a nice addition because we didn't get a lot of her solving mysteries in Season 2, And there were some in season 1, but not even close to this extent. And it's just fun to watch her outsmart people instead of always resorting to violence. The tension between Jessica and Trish is even higher this season, based on some events that unfolded in the end of season 2. And it was pretty interesting to watch because they both have pretty solid points for being upset at each other. Trish had her moments of annoyance in this season, I will admit, but I found her character arc extremely compelling, and she wasn't nearly as bad as she was in season 2. Eventually, they do settle their differences, and it is nice to see them make up and start working together in order to catch the new villain, Gregory Salinger. I see what they were trying to do with the villain, to have him be this criminal mastermind who covers his tracks really well and uses the law to protect himself from getting arrested. But he's not the most menacing villain, especially since he doesn't have powers and therefore cannot compete with Jessica. He was just hateable enough to make me want him taken out, but at the same time, I couldn't wait to see what he would do next to outsmart the heroes. I did like how Jessica really does want to kill Salinger, but can't because of the incident that gave her PTSD in season 1. She still hasn't gotten over it based on a lot of evidence from season 2 and this season. Even if it was only explored a little bit, it's nice to see this series continue in this form. The season can't top the original season, but for being the last season of Jessica Jones, and these shows in general, at least for now, we'll see, it was fantastic, and it is making it difficult to think about which show I preferred, Daredevil or this one. Probably going to go with Daredevil, but I really, really enjoyed Jessica Jones. Next up is Jessica Jones Season 1. One thing that this season does really well is the characters. They all have very interesting backstories, and even though they aren't the most pleasant people, the show still manages to get you to like and care about them. You feel pretty bad for the villain, even if he is a really scary and evil person. The flashback scenes... Really? The flashback scenes were great, showing how everyone came to be the way that they are. Jessica's flashbacks in particular were great. You really do get to see the sorrow in her life. And it was just neat to see a character with PTSD who can't bear to think about what was done to her by the villain, Kilgrave. Kilgrave is a phenomenal villain, and he is scary, but I was kind of rooting for him to change around the end. He is played by David Tennant, who does a great job in making his character very fun to watch, but really despicable at the same time. Of course, enhanced by his powers, which are the ability to take away people's free will and to make them do his bidding. This show also introduces Luke Cage, and he's pretty important in this season. The pacing was pretty good. Kilgrave's plotline went on a little too long for my taste, but I was still invested. Next up is Season 1 of The Punisher. The thing that this season did best was the pacing. Barely any scenes are unimportant, and every episode matters. A lot of the other shows in this list like to introduce subplots that don't really end up mattering too much, and I thought that was going to happen with this season with a certain plotline that I won't mention. But luckily, all the subplots were important and became one big plot in the end. They all became connected. This season had a really good story with a lot of twists and turns and was very entertaining throughout. I loved how the story was partly a political thriller in which the Punisher needs to punish the people that killed his family. When he punishes these people, he really does punish them. These scenes are sometimes disgusting to watch, and I found myself ooh, a few times, The show is rated M because he really does go all out on these people. This season really made me care about the characters as well. The main duo of the Punisher and Micro was very entertaining and made me really like them. This was one of my favorite seasons of this whole mini-universe. Next up is going to be Daredevil Season 1. This season is a really great starting season to this universe, with likable characters and great actors. Charlie Cox does a really good job as Daredevil, and even the villain, played by Vincent D'Onofrio, is great. D'Onofrio does a great job as this really scary character who thinks he is doing the right thing for his city, but he is also killing people. The story flows really well between the 13 episodes, and it really only slows down a bit in the middle. The fight scenes were great as well, with excellent choreography that was shot in really unique ways, such as a 2-minute long scene with no cuts at all. Daredevil keeps coming in and ruining Fisk's plan, making him more and more hateful towards him. I also like the city's reaction to Daredevil, as he as he is initially met with police officers wanting him arrested for being a vigilante, but eventually gains the city's trust and becomes a hero. I also really loved the side characters in this season with Foggy and Karen, and they were really compelling with their own side plots. Alright, and at number 1 is my favorite season in this entire universe, and this is one of my favorite pieces of media in the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. Daredevil, Season 3. This is by far my favorite season in this mini-universe. It's not even close. I have almost no problems with it. It was almost perfect. Taking place right after The Defenders, we see how Matt is feeling after all of the events that unfolded in that show. He is at a very different place in his life. He has lost his powers, and he feels that he should give up life as Daredevil. And we get to see his journey to get back into being a hero. The drama in this season is perfect. We see how torn Matt is over whether he should kill or not, such as in Season 1, but I find it better in this season, because it's more of a central theme. We also end up seeing Matt thinking about everyone that he has hurt as Daredevil. He wants to go back and see his friends, but he doesn't want to burden them with his other life. He struggles with his Catholicism as he deals with how being a vigilante might be straying from the path of God, which is a life that he has chosen. Wilson Fisk also returns in this season, and he is just as fantastic as ever. He is constantly pulling all the strings and controlling the FBI, but he is also just a normal man trying to get back together with Vanessa and setting up a wedding with her. He also creates a new villain who is fantastic as well. This new villain is very menacing, and he has a very compelling origin. Because he is so unhinged and his powers are so cool, it makes for some really nice action scenes with him and Daredevil. The action is just as good as ever, with a long take fight scene, once again, that is over 10 minutes long. The actor plays his character for the majority of the fight. It's not a stunt double. The whole season is phenomenal, and I have almost no complaints about it. Alright, and that's going to be it. I would highly recommend watching these shows if you haven't yet, as they provide some of the best content in the MCU, with some of the characters actually topping some of the characters from the movies. For example, I would rank someone like Jessica Jones over someone like Star-Lord, just based on character arcs. These shows are all rated M, so do be cautious if you decide to watch them, but I would give them a go. Unfortunately, these shows are on hold for a little while because of Disney not wanting to work with Netflix anymore due to the creation of Disney+. But hopefully they will continue on that service. I will be there day one if that is the case. Fully fleshed out characters, great storytelling, and fun fight scenes make these shows a very fun series to watch. And that's going to be pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed this. This is a pretty long video, so I think this is my longest video yet, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. And have a great day.